Hello everyone, welcome to Acorn of Thought, and today's article is on Be Driven. What forces drive you today? Are you guided by the forces of society, work, and peers? Most people are. We spend a great deal of our time in one of those three areas during our day, and it does preoccupy us, and we're so concerned about satisfying the needs of all three groups. And this came about in a conversation with a person I listened to talking, and as I listened to this person, I began to understand that this individual was spending a great deal of time in one of those groups, the peer group. And so, as as I begin to think, this person is spending 90% of their time with the peer group, and the things that I heard this individual say were so indicative of the peer pressure that this group is exerting on this individual. And so the views that came through through this discussion was such that you can tell that the individual's thinking was skewed a great deal toward appealing to the peer pressure. And so you begin to realize in this discussion there was a lot of inconsiderate and self-centered thinking, which demonstrates the great lack of the most important guide for this individual, and that was the guide of Christ. The guide for this individual was the peers and the values that society places on peer groups gets pushed down to individuals, and they begin to adopt a herd mentality. And in this conversation, I recall, the individual stating that it's all too easy, but all my life I've been driven by guiding principle A, B, and C, and that kind of a statement is just all too easy to say as to why we think and do what we think and do, because the guiding principle A, B, C, generally translates to a personal value, and it's what that individual thinks is the most important as by the peer pressure exertion on that individual. And so we find that our herd mentality begins to become our individual thinking. And this is where individuals make a great deal of mistakes, short term and long term. We would have to really open our minds up on a society level to adopt the teachings of Jesus, it would seem. And I think that most of us would agree with the way our society is going. And it all begins with certain individuals beginning to adopt the teachings of Jesus and adopt Jesus as their Lord and Savior before any of this can happen and manifest itself further up. And so it's like the battle of a good value coming up and society's value coming down, and individuals oftentimes succumb to the peer pressure. And yet, if we could just feel comfortable in His Word and what He has said and what He has done and what the Scriptures have recorded, and withstand that peer pressure, we could really make change in society. And I believe that's very possible. But it's not very easy. And you can tell that with a lot of these younger people as you begin to talk and discuss, important issues with them. And really, we need to teach them how to spend time with God and encourage them to do so. And through their buy-in, they can pass that same value on to their friends and their peers, and we can begin to work upward and, I believe, make significant society change. Driven by God, the teachings of Jesus, and what the Scriptures have to say. We just got to get people to feel comfortable with that. Imagine if we were all driven by His Word and His Word alone. Our ability to communicate, find common ground, and to spend with a great deal of uncertainty about each other would greatly dissipate. And it's so important that we try to do that, especially in a society as divided as we are today. As we seek God's guidance, we are not only better driven in what we do, but in how we do what we do. And manifesting from that is compassion. Compassion begins to take root. And it drives us to do things for others and not make ourselves the only concern, which is such a society value today. And that's the greatest hurdle for society to overcome. It's the me factor. And as long as we live in a me world, we're never going to make significant change. And it's so important that we do that. We overcome the value of me and what's in it for me. The basic bottom line here is we can cross this hurdle and do great things as a result of that. But we have to help others understand that following scriptural values and changing our stinking thinking really can have a positive effect on our own life and the life of others, those that we interact with, and we can perpetuate that reward throughout those that we know, and eventually begin to make significant change in society, because he can do great things and use us for his purposes along the way, and we know that. And this is what should drive us today. And so if we're to be driven, let's be driven by Jesus' teachings, and through that venue, then we can make some significant improvement in our world. I hope you enjoyed the article, and thank you for watching the video, and I hope you have a blessed day.